Have you ever been in a crowded place, like maybe a busy city street or a packed concert, and still felt this, like, quiet sense of loneliness inside? That's the feeling we're going to explore today.
Interesting.
Yeah, we're doing a deep dive into one of Fyodor Dostoevsky's early works, White Nights.
Oh, White Knights. Okay.
Right. And to really set the scene for you, imagine St. Petersburg, Russia, but during those incredibly bright summer nights where the sun barely sets.
Ah, those beautiful white nights. Yeah.
Exactly. It's a city that's outwardly full of life and energy, bustling with people. But for the main character in the book, it becomes a backdrop for some serious, intense inner isolation.
That contrast, that tension really gets at the heart of Dostoevsky, doesn't it?
It really does. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Do you ever feel more truly, vividly alive in your dreams and those worlds your mind creates than in, like, everyday reality?
That's a really great question to start us off.
Yeah.
And it goes straight to the core of what makes White Knights so powerful and relatable, even though it was written way back in 1848.
Wow, 1848, so early in his career.
Right. Before those massive novels he's known for, like Crime and Punishment and The Brothers Karamazov. But even in this shorter work, you can see Dostoevsky's amazing ability to get inside the human mind and explore all those complex emotions and experiences.
Yeah.
And for me, the key figure in all of this is the unnamed dreamer. He's kind of an archetype, this solitary guy who just doesn't quite fit in with the world around him.
Okay, so let's talk about this dreamer. What do we know about him? From the different sources I've looked at, it seems like he's deeply immersed in his own thoughts and fantasies, like almost completely.
Absolutely. He's lost in daydreams, creating these elaborate internal worlds. But for you, it's important to remember that this dreamer archetype isn't just about having a vivid imagination. It's like a whole way of being, right? He finds more meaning, maybe even more excitement, in those internal worlds than he does in reality.
I think we've all had those moments where we get lost in our own thoughts and create these stories in our heads, haven't we?
Oh, definitely.
Almost as a way to deal with everyday life or like escape it altogether, you
Yeah,
know?
exactly. And that's actually a really fascinating paradox about this dreamer archetype. You see, his imagination is like a refuge, a safe space away from a world that could be disappointing or even overwhelming.
Right.
But at the same time, it's also kind of a trap, isn't it? Because this rich inner life, while it protects him, it also prevents him from truly connecting with other people and experiencing the world as it really is.
That's such a good point. And one of the sources I read pointed out how much the dreamer's inner world is shaped by, all the literature he reads.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, his ideas about love, relationships, even how people interact, they all come from books. And that's where it gets a little tricky, right?
Yeah, how so?
Well, he has these idealized, often romantic notions of what things should be like, but then reality, with all its messy, unpredictable chaos, doesn't quite match up. It's almost as if he's living his life through the filter of these fictional narratives.
And for you, it's important to note, it's not just a passive influence. This reliance on literature, it becomes his main way of interacting with the world. The sources describe how he wanders around St. Petersburg, but instead of actually engaging with the people he sees, he makes up stories about them. Right? He
Wow.
gives them imaginary personalities and pasts, building these elaborate narratives in his head.
He's surrounded by people, but still completely alone in his own world.
It's a powerful image of loneliness, isn't it? And it makes you think, how many of us do that too, to some extent? We put up these walls in our minds, even when we're surrounded by other people.
That's a good question.
Mm.
And it makes me think about how, for the dreamer, these white nights aren't just bright summer evenings. They're kind of symbolic, don't you think?
I think you're absolutely right. They're more than just a time of year.
Yeah, they're like this fleeting period of heightened emotions and blurred lines between reality and fantasy, much like the dreamer's own experience. And I don't know, they seem to foreshadow the temporary nature of the connection he's about to make.
I think you've hit on something really important there. The white nights, they're beautiful and magical, right?
Yeah.
But they don't last forever.
Mm-hmm.
And neither does the intense connection the dreamer forms with Nastenka, the woman he meets by the river. And this encounter, it marks his first real step out of his self-imposed isolation and into the realm of human connection.
And Nastenka, she's not just some passive character in his story, is she?
Absolutely not. She's fascinating, a complex character with her own hopes and dreams, and she's got this really interesting backstory. She's waiting for, well, her old lover who promised to return after a year,
Right.
and the fact that she lives with her controlling grandmother, who literally pins her dress to her own to keep her close. That really emphasizes her own lack of freedom.
It's like these two lonely souls, each living in their own internal worlds, find each other under the unique glow of these white nights. It's really quite beautiful and a little sad at the same time.
It is. And what strikes me about Nastenka is that even though she's in this difficult situation and she's holding on to this hope for her past love, she's still open to forming a connection with the dreamer.
Yeah.
They both kind of exist on the edges of society, right?
Right.
They have these rich inner lives, but also feel very alone.
Right, exactly.
And that shared experience, that's what connects them so quickly.
Right.
Over those 4 nights they spend together, they share their deepest thoughts, their fears, their hopes for the future. It's a really powerful example of vulnerability and emotional intimacy.
And for the dreamer, this is something totally new, isn't it? He's never had anyone truly listen to him before. But for you, it's important to note that Nastenka is honest with him from the start.
Hmm.
She doesn't pretend she's not still in love with her former lover. And that creates this underlying tension, right? This feeling that things can't possibly last.
It's a really delicate situation. Nastenka is caught between her loyalty to a promise she made in the past and the very real connection she's building with the dreamer in the present.
It's almost like his idealized view of love, probably shaped by all those books he reads, is clashing with Nastenka's more complicated reality. And this reminded me of something one of the sources mentioned about how media can shape our expectations of love.
Oh, how so?
It compared the dreamer, with his literary influences, to Tom Hansen in the movie 500 Days of Summer, who gets a lot of his ideas about romance from pop songs and films. And it made me think, how often do we let those external narratives, those stories we consume, dictate how we think love should be?
That's such an important point. We absorb all these love stories from books, movies, music, you name it.
Right.
And it's easy to start believing that our own relationship should follow those same patterns. But real life is rarely that simple or straightforward, is it?
It's definitely not. And then, as we know, Nastenka's former love returns, just as he promised. The unspoken countdown throughout their 4 nights together, it finally reaches 0. And despite the genuine connection she's formed with the dreamer, she chooses to leave with him. It's heartbreaking, isn't it?
It is. For the dreamer, it's a huge blow. After experiencing this brief but intense period of happiness and connection, he's suddenly plunged back into loneliness. But the novella doesn't leave him completely devastated.
That's true.
He finds a kind of peace, even a sense of gratitude for the short time he had with Nastenka. It's a really nuanced, mature reaction, don't you think?
It is. And it brings us to one of the most powerful quotes from the book, which really captures that theme. My God, whole minute of bliss. Is that not enough, even for a whole lifetime?
Oh, I thought they were.
It's not really about finding lasting romantic love. It's about recognizing the impact, the deep lasting impact that even a brief but genuine connection can have. Like a single spark can light up even the darkest night.
And for you, that quote reframes the entire experience. It suggests that those short-lived moments of intense connection are incredibly valuable. They have the power to shape our lives in really profound ways, even if they don't last forever.
And the white nights themselves, they become this powerful symbol, don't they?
How so?
They represent the fleeting nature of intense emotions and connections. Bright and beautiful, but ultimately temporary.
Yeah, you're right. And for you, another crucial symbol is the dreamer's reliance on literature.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just a hobby. It represents escapism, a way for him to cope with the loneliness and disappointments of life by retreating into these perfect fictional worlds. Do you ever find yourself doing something similar?
I think we all do in our own ways. We find distractions, things to take our minds off the difficult parts of life.
Exactly. And for you, all of these themes tie back to the novella's exploration of unrequited love, the desire for a connection that's not fully reciprocated, and a deeper existential yearning that drives the dreamer. He's not just looking for romantic love, he's searching for meaning, for a sense of belonging and purpose in a world that often feels meaningless.
And his brief encounter with Nastenka forces him to confront parts of himself that he's probably kept hidden, maybe even from himself.
That's a good point. The dreamlike atmosphere of those white nights, it intensifies this exploration of his inner world, his desires, his vulnerabilities, and all of this is happening in a really short book.
It's amazing, isn't it? Even in a shorter work like White Nights, Dostoevsky is already grappling with huge philosophical questions about existence, the self, all these big concepts.
That's true. And for you, it's almost like a preview of the themes he explores in much more depth in his later novels, like Crime and Punishment and the brothers Karamazov.
Right, those really deep dives into existentialism and morality. And it's interesting, White Knights being the shorter work, kind of a bridge to those more complex narratives.
It shows, I think, that Dostoevsky was always fascinated by the inner lives of his characters, their struggles, their search for connection in a world that can often feel cold and indifferent.
So as we wrap up this deep dive for you, I think we're left with some thought-provoking questions, right?
Like what?
Like, how often do we pin our hopes, even our entire fantasies, on moments or connections that might not last? And even more importantly, what do we gain from those intense, fleeting moments, even if they don't turn out the way we'd hoped?
Those are great questions, and especially relevant today, you know?
House.
Well, we're so connected in some ways, but there's also this huge potential for isolation.
Right.
And White Knight speaks to that in a way that's incredibly powerful. It asks us to think about our own vulnerabilities, our desire for love and connection, the pain of loneliness, and the importance of really being present in those moments when we do connect with others, even if they're brief.
Dostoevsky is telling us not to dismiss those short-lived but intense experiences, even if they end in disappointment.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the depth of emotion, the clarity of insight we gain from them that makes them so meaningful, even if they only last for, a minute of bliss. It's really something to think about, isn't it?
It is.
And on that note, I think it's time to end this episode of The Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us.
It was my pleasure.
And until next time, keep exploring.
Keep diving deep.